Perfect. And I should probably bring up my chat as well. Okay. So it's a Saturday night here anyways. And I'd like to say thank you for giving up some time on Saturday to spend with me, but I'd also like to congratulate you for taking that step on a Saturday to focus on your music, your career, your future, your plans, because this is going to go a long way to get you where you want to go. So still waiting on some people to hop on. Can you share anything you took away, any takeaway from yesterday at all, Sandra? Or was there anything that you found really helpful, something that blessed you?
Yeah, what I took away is journaling. Usually I don't journal. I I'm very spontaneous. So I think that should be part of my journey going forward. Journaling and putting things down, and that should serve as a guide. And it's more efficient that way. It's easier for checks and balance.
Yes, journaling. I think it's something over the years that I've used off and on, but it can be really helpful to get clarity, to get plans written down. And I always say this, like in the past, when I've gone for courses or when I've done when I've received some training and I wrote things down, and maybe I had some ideas or I had some plans that I wrote down. It gives me such a kick when I go back to those journals and I see that what I wrote down has come to pass. It always blesses me so much. There is so much power when you write your vision, you write your plans, you write your heart desires, and there is so much power in it. So absolutely. Yes. Journaling. Yeah. Welcome, Sharon. I was asking for any takeaways from yesterday. Do you have anything that blessed you, something that you took away?
Yesterday was more like a review, because I have actually been through the process before of understanding what your belief system currently is and the obstacles and change and the new beliefs. So it was a refresher, a reminder for me. Can't say I've practiced it much this year. So it was I think refreshing to revisit that and be reminded that things are how I choose to perceive them. And the obstacles that I think are obstacles aren't.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, everything is figure outable. I think that, we start on these journeys, we start on these goals, and we don't always know the how, but the how figures itself out as we step forward, as we, make the decisions, and we decide that nothing's going to stand in my way. This is what I'm doing. And you just start kind of step by step smashing through the obstacles, and you get there in the end.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I might have read way more into that than what was there, but that's my brain for you. And but yeah, I enjoyed yesterday, and I did write it all down, and
yeah, you are definitely in the running for winning something. So far, you're the only one who's posted your homework, and you've done it in a very succinct way to let everyone know that you mean it. You mean you mean this. That is good to see. That is good to see. It's almost like your world wakes up and listens up, when you're like, nope, I'm doing this. I mean this.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes the hardest part, well, for me, it's just making a decision.
Yes.
I have an active brain. I have a lot of ideas running through my head at any given moment.
Yes.
Deciding what to pursue can be ridiculously challenging for me. And I can't do literally everything at once. So I have to make a choice. And I often will just sit on something for years. I mean, the children's book thing, I initially had the idea when I was about 25. I'm 47 now.
Yep.
And then it really came back to me, fairly recently. And this time around, I haven't sat on the idea very long. Because I felt it so strongly, I think.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go with, well, what feels the strongest? What's pulling me the most? I think, I mean, obviously music is my first love, and it's what I'm really passionate about, but I have other things that I love as well. I mean, I do love to write, and I love like theater arts. What do I pursue? And right now my brain's not working very well for music. I'm okay with singing, but creating the music right now isn't it hasn't been working very well. So
that's okay, because we all go through phases. So this year for me was about releasing music, releasing, marketing, publicizing. There was a lot of that happening, and then writing took a back seat because it uses like different parts of your brain. So we do go through these phases where we're really in a creative mode. Hi, Rachel. We're really creative, and then we begin to go through to the next phase where we're releasing, or we're marketing, or we're touring. So all of that's fine. But yes, I love what you say about having multiple passions, because we're going to talk about that today.
Oh.
Yep, we're going to talk about that today. And
great.
And yeah, it's actually quite good that you started off with that. Okay, so yesterday we talked about I suppose mindset was the big thing, wasn't it? Talked about mindset, talked about the different things that were possible, roadblocks and limiting beliefs, and how all of that was just perception, and how that we could still move ahead and accomplish tasks, and how that we could reframe and retrain our brains to think differently, and actually speaking it out loud, and saying those affirmations over and over again will rewire our mindsets so that we can step out confidently and get things done. And then we talked about personal goals, and we all made plans, and we talked about spiritual goals, we talked about personal development. And today we will be talking about our careers and how to increase streams of income. All right. So why is this important? I think by now we all know that music making is expensive. And if you have a life with bills and children, and you had limited income, and what you were investing in wasn't gonna produce return very quickly, music will become very unsustainable very quickly, because you just wouldn't be able to go to the studio. And not everyone is gifted like yourself, Sharon, to actually release their own music. Some people produce their music, which is great, but many of us need producers, and it's not just sustainable. So very quickly, you begin to realize that you need to create multiple streams of income. But actually, this is not even relegated to just musicians. Everyone needs to start thinking broadly, because you will not be able to leave a legacy, a financial legacy for your children, if you just had a job and you weren't thinking outside the box. Someone gave this job job. He calls it just over broke. In other words, what you're getting from your job is barely enough to keep you going, and you barely have time to do anything else. So people very quickly begin to realize that they need to start thinking outside the box of their jobs. They need to start thinking of other ways to bring in money, and other ideas that can not just bring in money, but that they can scale. So I'll talk about scaling later on. But this is not just for musicians. Everyone needs to start thinking about that. And the fastest way to have income streams that gets you to financial freedom is by having multiple income streams. So not just working on one thing, but actually thinking of multiple things that can bring in money steadily. That is the way to go. It can take a while to get there, and having too many things that you want to do and too many ideas itself can paralyze you. So always remember to just work on one thing at a time. You work on one thing, and then you move on to the next. And that's really important for us independent musicians, because I get lots of people who, we talk about websites, and we talk about this, and we talk about email lists, and I'm like, and then they just don't do any of it. Always remember to pace yourself and do one thing at a time. That's really important. But the big picture is to have multiple streams of income, so multiple ideas. And it's great when you have multiple things that you're interested in, multiple things that you can do, because half of the work is already done. All right, so yesterday I said how each and every one of us has something that we can do. Each and every one of us has something that we can offer. We are all unique. We all have our own perspectives. We all do something differently. So regardless of what it is, even memoirs, I used to wonder what the big deal was about memoirs. And I, all of a sudden, it clicked for me today. I was reading about how, if you wanted to write a book, how to go about it. And the lady said, memoirs is, people actually don't want to read about your life. They actually want to read about their life. So in other words, what lessons from their lives could apply to you? That's why people read memoirs. And all of a sudden it made sense. I was like, duh, people are not just reading the life story of other people. It's because they're relating it to themselves. I mean, it might be really simple, but maybe people grasped that ages ago, and I was the only one who didn't know that. But I was never really into picking up and reading memoirs until she said that. I was like, actually, that makes sense. You're reading it for yourself, not just because their life was interesting, but how would it relate to you? So even your life story, just your life story, is going to be a blessing to someone. And you can do that in multiple ways, which we'll get to in a second. So first things first, pick an area that you're good at, that you like, something that came quite easily to you. So, for example, you, Sharon, has said multiple things already. Sandra, we haven't really spoken to that level, but I know that you have a day job that's not music at all.
Yeah.
And do you by any chance have other things that you're interested in?
Well, aside music and my regular job, because I'm an environmental scientist. Aside that, I want to do real estate.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And I want to write a book,
Yep. Yeah. And the list is already starting.
Yeah.
Rachel, if you can type any things that you like to do. Just go ahead and type it in the chat so we can just talk about it for a little bit. So the sweet spot for us musicians is something that you can relate to your music. So writing a book, definitely you can relate that to your music.
Yeah.
And maybe when you become famous, you can relate your fame,
Yeah.
your estate, to your real estate. People might just buy from you just because you're a popular musician. You never know.
Yeah.
But I think the sweet spot is, infusing whatever it is that you do with your music, because then people can also go back to your music as well, right? Because if you wrote about your music in your book, they will then say, "Oh, let me go actually check it out," So essentially, your music will be in the middle of whatever it is that you're doing. And then this multiple streams of income will be around it. So multiple things that we can consider. Some of them we've already spoken about. Books, ebooks are actually really easy to create and to just put online. Very, very easy. And I hear that is a really popular thing that people do now. But obviously you can also do hard copy. And to move that, you might need to organize things like a launch, and you might need to find out how to do it. Just so you're able to move these books and push sales. Teaching. So Sharon, I know that you produce, and that is something that a lot of musicians will be interested in. Hi, Priscilla, welcome. Hi, Priscilla. So I know that many musicians always want to learn a little bit about producing, because maybe when they write a song, they want to be able to do a simple demo that they can send to their producer. So that can become something that you monetize very quickly, because you would want to you can monetize that. You can start talking about it. You can start letting people know that you do it and you're happy to teach it. And you can start thinking of fun ways that you can teach it. Obviously, if you play an instrument, you can also teach an instrument. You can coach like I'm doing. And coaching is essentially, people always say, "Oh, how am I the expert?" But always remember that you are far ahead of people that have not started at all. And those people will be looking for someone. They'll be interested in what you have to say. So an expert doesn't mean you know everything. Actually, I've realized this over the last year. Even the experts are still learning. They are still learning. So if you're waiting to feel like an expert before you actually portray yourself as an expert, you'll be waiting a really long time. Actually, it's just owning that you are ahead, owning what you've done, owning what you've learned, owning the experience you already have, and teaching what you've learned. That is essentially what coaching is all about. So if you're ahead, so like me, I've released an album. It's my second year. I've done a lot already, actually. I can teach all of that because I'm someone who loves knowledge. And when I decided I wanted to go into music, I very quickly started to learn. So I've learned from multiple coaches, multiple mentors, all sorts of programs, and I keep learning. I don't play instruments, so that wasn't an option for me, but I very quickly realized that I could teach what I knew. And I actually like the interaction with people. I love talking to people. It's something that comes naturally to me, so why not monetize it? Very easy peasy, you know? So if there's something that you do, you know, think about ways that you can monetize it. Merch, you know, at my last concert, so my album release concert, I spoke about my merch in this way. I said, in the Bible, God told the Israelites to teach their children to remember what he had done, right? So you will come across, they will call them altars. You will come across all sorts of things that were signs to remind people of something that God had done. And he will say, write it on the doors, write it on the wall. Parents should teach their children, and the children should teach their children, you know, and all of that was happening. And I said, you've heard a lot of songs tonight. Many of the songs have blessed you. For each of the song, the major message, I have put it on a t-shirt that you can take home and remind yourself of this message. And what do you know? How many people got merch? I think I was able to sell a lot more merch than I have in the past, just because I was able to relate it to the experience they had had and relate it to remembering that experience and remembering that message. So there's a lot of things that you can relate to your music and monetize. You can also create a course. So if you didn't really have time to teach people or coach people one-on-one, you could just record a video of you teaching a course, something that you know, something that you love. Record a series of videos teaching it and just put it on the internet, market it, sell it. So that's quite different from coaching. And it can also be a lead on to other services that you offer, because if people come across it on the internet, buy it, that they have a doorway into your services. If they like it, then they go actually looking for more of what you do. So that's also a really good idea that you can just do on your own. You just need your phone, computer. You don't need much to do that at all. You don't. And obviously, let's not forget music itself. People still buy CDs. If people love your music and they want, actually, if some people love you, I want to support you, they might actually not haven't heard your music. They might just buy it, you know? So I always say people want to buy from you. Your audience wants to buy from you. Let them. You have to actually offer them something so they can buy. Obviously, there's now USB sticks and things like that we can buy and personalize and put our music on and sell. But I've sold a couple of CDs because I didn't actually just say, no one is going to buy a CD. I needed to help some people find where to play it, but they bought it. That's the important thing. That is what, £10 more than I had before. And if I went to, I bought a CD that I've actually not listened to just because I loved his music and I wanted to support him. And if I go to concerts that they still offer CDs, I might still buy, because if I really liked the music, I still love the experience of a theme where there are songs relating to that theme, especially live music. Like there's not, you, I still love that experience of listening to a project from start to finish, because there was a lot of thought that went into that, into the order of the songs, into all of that. So people still want that. So yes, you can still sell your music. And of course, register it. Register it at the multiple places that you need to register so you can get your royalties. Plus, when you perform, you need to register that performance so you can also get paid royalties for that. So there's still other ways to monetize our music. It might take a while before we actually start to see an income stream from there. But the important thing is to get the basics and the setup right. So when the money starts to come in, they know who to find you and you get paid for it. Okay, so now, money mindsets is something that very quickly becomes important when you talk about courses and pricing what you're doing, because what I see, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, is you feel very awkward about raising your prices and charging good money for what you do. I remember when I first started this year, this was part of my of what I offered for my crowdfunding campaign. Actually, crowdfunding campaign should have been on that list, because there's no reason why a musician should not crowdfund. Like, everyone does it, even the musicians who have made it. As long as you're not signed to a label, they all crowdfund, because this is another opportunity again for your audience to support you. So at the minute, I don't feel bad at all about crowdfunding. I think I've essentially done one a year since I started. So I did one last year, I did one this year. I'm definitely going to do one next year. That is leaving money on the table if you're not planning on doing it, because people that love your music will support you. And it's also another really good way of growing your audience as well. So I actually crowdfunded before I ever released any music. I already had an audience to release my music to because I had crowdfunded. It's also another really good way to grow your email lists, because everyone that gives, they've essentially given you their emails to update them on the project they just gave. They just gave their money for, they will want to hear from you about how the project is going. So that is another really good way to start growing your email list. So crowdfunding is definitely something that you should be doing regularly. Okay, going back to money mindsets. I'm sure we can all think about sayings that we grew up with that might not have really helped us to have a healthy money mindset. Does anyone want to type or say a couple of these sayings out? What are the really common things that people think about money that are not necessarily true or helpful? And money doesn't grow on trees. In other words, what? Oh, Sandra, you're asking about how we crowdfund.
Yes.
Okay. Remind me to talk about that at the end.
All right.
So yes, money is the root of all evil. Very, very common one. Absolutely. And we know that it's actually the love of money. The love of money. And it's actually the love of money above other things, right? Because I love money, but I'm not evil. I'm sure we all love money, but we're not evil. It's the love of money above all other things that is the root of all evil. Yes, there's so many other things that we will have grown up hearing. It will have shaped our minds and our thoughts around money in a certain way, and it could stop us from doing what we need to do. But you'll need to work on it. And when I say things like mindset, actually, I know that it's not like you can flip a switch and all of these beliefs will disappear. It takes time. It takes persistence. It takes you wanting to want to be healthy, wanting to do what you need to do in order to be successful. It takes you being consistent and doing the work to develop the right mindset about all of these things. So I know it's not like you flip a switch, but it's something that it needs work. It needs work. So if you know that, you are really afraid to raise your prices, then think about things that you can do to help. I'm going to talk about some of them here. But I know from the affirmations we wrote down yesterday, I don't know if you wrote any about money, but I think important affirmations will be things like money can be made with ease. You don't necessarily need to suffer and, work all night and day just so you can see money. I know that we might have seen our parents wake up before dawn and work till they literally dropped in the middle of the night to sleep. We might have seen that growing up. It does not mean that money cannot be made with ease. So it's just things like that we need to pay attention to, because we might have seen, oh, this is how my parents made money. They worked. And then you see people who actually might be making money without doing all of that work. And it's almost like you resent them, actually. You should find out how they're doing it, because it is possible to do that. So on my list of affirmations, I wrote, I make money with ease. Money can be made with ease. I can build a legacy of wealth for my kids. I am worth every penny I charge. Self-worth is a big one. Self-worth, self-value. And that is deep, because I know that over the years, your value might have been tied to all sorts of things. Life may have happened, and your value might have taken a beating. It's just, you need to recognize that, and you need to do the work to get you out of that mind state. However, you need to just recognize it, and you need to do the work to get you out. Even if it just starts by saying that over yourself every day. I am worth every penny. I have value. My self-value is amazing. I value myself. I'm worth it. And we need to, some people actually, they can't charge the right amount because they think people won't pay. And some people attribute how much they can afford onto other people. So if they can't pay the amount, they think no one will pay the amount. And that's just not true. So we need to be really careful that we are not reinforcing what we think onto our potential customers, because that's just not true. And I've seen it. I have seen it. So what else? I'm worth every penny I charge. People can see that value and people pay. I am a rich soul for investing. I have and live from a place of abundance. That's really important for selling. When you have things you want to offer for sale, you want to pitch, really important to do it from a place of abundance, because it becomes really icky and it becomes uncomfortable, and it's obvious when you're like, if you don't pay for it now, like if you don't buy from me, like I need this to survive, they can tell, and it's not really a nice experience for them. So people that you might have seen, some people who maybe they were like, oh, okay, this costs 1,000, and you're like, no, and they were like, okay, wait, I can drop it to 800, and you're like, no, like, oh, wait, okay. Okay, how about 500 last? And you're like, no, and I'm like, okay, wait, let me call my boss and see what we can, they are just desperate. And it's not really a nice experience. You don't want to sell your products like that. You want to sell from a place of abundance, and you say, this is my price, take it or leave it. If you can't afford it now, that's fine. I'm here when you can afford it. or someone has said it like this, oh, I really, really want this product, but I can only pay this amount. Okay, you can only pay this amount. Okay, so what parts of the course do you want me to drop out? Easy. What part do you want me to leave out? Because this is how much it costs. So if you let me know what part of the course you want me to drop out, then that's fine. I'll drop it out, But we need to leave from that place of abundance. And it can be hard, but it's all a mindset thing, isn't it? It's a mindset thing to say, look, I'll be all right. Even if you don't buy from me, I know what I'm offering. I know what my value is. I know what this course can do for you. If you can't buy from it, that is fine. In the future, when you can afford it, you can come by and buy. That goes a long way. And then talking about pricing, there's multiple ways that I've seen people approach pricing. I remember at the start of the year, I attended a course about booking gigs. So there's this lady who she books gigs throughout the year, and that's what she lives off. So before the year actually starts, it's like she's booked out already for the next year, and her course was about teaching you how to get bookings. And she used to say things like she'll raise her prices, and things that she used to do about getting people to not being afraid to raise her prices, thinking that people, you're like, oh no, you've raised your prices, I can't pay that. And she said, no, actually, she will just raise her prices, and lots of people will be like, fine, that's fine, and they will just pay. And then she started to talk about how she knew what she was worth, and this is what she went to uni to study. And I noticed that if you had gone to uni, or if you had gone to college and you had studied something, you will know what you're worth. There's a subtle change there, isn't there? It's almost like, oh no, this is what I went to school. I know the amount of time and money I spent on this, therefore, this is what I'm charging. And I think that's part of our problem sometimes. We feel like, oh, I was born with a nice voice. Or I've not really spent a lot of money. Actually, that's also important, because part of why we worry about raising our prices is because we can't see the worth. We can't see it. And that's fine. You can go to do a course, learn about it, because it gets to a point where you know what you've studied, and that knowing raises your confidence levels. So you can come up with a plan, study, go learn more, build that knowledge, build that fount of knowledge, and then you'll be able to raise your prices that way. That is an option. Another option or another factor to consider is how much you want to earn. So if you wanted to earn like 10,000 a month, you will someone's eyes are like opening up really widely. If you wanted to earn 10,000 a month, you will think about how much time you had, how much time you wanted to work, how much you think an hour is worth, how many clients you could put. So there's a way you can walk back. Say, okay, I think my time is worth £100. therefore, to make £10,000, that means I need to work 1,000. Is it 1,000? 100 times 1,000? No, 100 times 100 makes 10,000. So essentially, you would need to work 100 hours in a month to make that. Do you get my drift? So there are just some things, or you could say, I have a course that I charge. Oh, Sharon, yours is really easy. You could say, to make 10,000 a month, if I produce 10 songs for £1,000 each, that does it, right? Well, the math is correct though, isn't it? 10 times 1,000 is 10,000. But I'm just trying to get you to think about these things. You can work with how much you want to earn and then work backwards. But you're still thinking, I can't charge 1,000 a month. I pay 1,000 for a song. So it's definitely doable. You said you'll never sleep. Yeah, well, I don't know how long it takes to actually produce a song. So I'll leave it at that. But you can think about that. You can think, so I think I started to talk about this because I remember at the start of the year, I charged £100 for 10 coaching sessions. And every time I talked about that to anyone, they would like bust out laughing. Like, you mean your time costs you 10, your time, an hour of your time is worth £10? These are just some things to consider, because I know what I get paid for an hour as a doctor. And if you just think about things like that, that helps you know that you're worth more than that, aren't you? Like, surely you can raise your prices. Those are just some things to think about. Surely you can raise your prices. You are definitely worth more than £10 an hour. I don't know if that helps you, but I'm just throwing it out there. Yes. So 3 things that I want us to do: elevate yourself, invest in yourself, raise your standards. Raising your standards can just be like, I don't want to ever charge someone £10 for an hour of my time ever again. It's just saying, no, this is not what I do. I don't do that. I don't do that anymore. Just raise your standards. You're better than that. You're worth more than that. Elevate yourself. There's a lot of ways to get the education we need, to get that knowledge that we seek. There is multiple ways to do it. So what ways have been really helpful for me over the last year? There's been lots of free coaching. So, for example, this is a challenge, right? I've gone to multiple challenges this year that talked about multiple things and learned lots of things. I've worked with several coaches. Many of them were one to many, but just being in that place alone and interacting with the other students also went a long way. And many of them are actually not that expensive. Some of them are like £40 a month. Some of them were not expensive at all. Podcasts, it's amazing. Podcasts are free. But the wealth of knowledge you can get from listening to a podcast is invaluable. And you can do that without paying anything. Someone actually said something once. He said, if you said for the next year you were going to listen to a podcast or a training or a book, listen to something educational for 30 minutes on your way to work and 30 minutes on your way back from work, and you did that for the whole year, that actually amounts to getting 3 PhDs. Just doing that. Of wealth of knowledge. You can grow in a big way just from listening to podcasts. So that's something very easy that we can all do. Mentoring, I remember going to a lady in the past who was a pediatrician, and I was still in medical school at this time. Oh no, actually I'd finished. I was a new doctor at this time. And I went to her and said, oh, I want you to mentor me. You're doing exactly what I want to do. I just finished, but I think I want to be a pediatrician. You're a really good Christian. I just like how you carry yourself. I want you to mentor me. And she took me under her wings. Now, not much happened, but it meant that if I had a problem, I knew who to go to. Who to go to discuss it, who to go to talk about it. And she was also like a Christian, so she could also pray with me, pray for me, things like that. So you're getting a mentor because they are experienced in what you are doing. It's that experience that you're going to them for. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. My experience this year has just coming back to money. When I started out this year, I realized very quickly that I needed help in marketing and in coaching generally, because I decided I wanted to do more of it. But my first attempt at growing some sort of lists was a book. And I had written this book, and I had written it around my music. It was more like a journal, actually. And I had sent it out to my email list, like, this is Christmas. And just to say thank you, I wanted to just give you this journal / ebook that I had written. It's gonna bless you. So have a look at it. And it was like crickets, nothing. I don't think anyone opened because MailChimp tells you what your click rates are, who's clicking on the links you're sending. And I remember calling my friend in Lagos, Nigeria, and I was like, Kike, I sent an ebook out, and I'm just wondering, have you looked at it? She was like, no, I've not. I was like, okay, can you open your email now and check? And she did, and she was like, oh, Abby, this is really good. I was like, I know. It's really good. I was like, I know. Why is no one opening the book? And I started to realize that it was marketing. Maybe I had not hyped it enough. I had not given the correct information. And then one of the first courses I went on early this year was what to do if your freebie is not working. And I learned that the name you called your freebie is important, because I had called it Reflections. What in the world does reflections mean? So now I've changed the title of the book to how to becoming fearless. The seven days to becoming fearless. That's what I've changed title to, and it's doing much better, right? Because 7 days to becoming fearless grabs your attention, and I've marketed it as an ebook / journal / devotional. So, take your pick, whichever one appeals to you. But it's amazing the things that we learn, the things that, what I'm trying to say is, you don't know what you don't know. You actually have no clue. What you might think you know stuff, and then you go about doing things and you quickly realize you don't know anything. You need to learn. You need to raise your, to educate yourself. Another thing about pricing was, at the start of the year, I was attending trainings on how to coach, how to have your program, and how to do all of these things. And I remember the first lady that I went to, she was quite interesting, and she had a very engaged audience. And I can't remember how much it cost. Maybe she said you need to join for like 4,000. And I was like, ooh, there's no way I'm running away from here. And then the next one I came across was like 10,000. I was like, oh, I should have gotten the 4,000 one, And that happened over and over and over again. And then I will hear things like, oh, we'll work with you and we'll be able to get you to the point where you make 10,000 in a month. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And then, but not just one person was saying it, multiple people were saying it. And then I started to ask, okay, I'm a doctor. I only work on music 1 day a week. Is that even feasible? They were like, oh, no. For you, no, it won't really be. It's full time we're talking about. I was like, okay, that's helpful to know. But it wasn't just, I think we've trained ourselves to just say, ooh, Nigerians call it 419. You just want to take my money and not deliver. Or there's no way this is happening. It's too expensive. And we've trained ourselves to just say, no, I'm out of here. And some people don't even want you to sell to them. When you start selling, they're out. They're like, I'm gone. We've trained ourselves to do that. And I think if you want to be successful, that is not the right attitude at all, because I know the amount of times I've said, okay, pitch, what's your pitch? What are you selling? And I loved what they're saying. I was like, really? I want it. But if you don't even just give the time to listen, you're not going to know what you're missing. It's almost like no, I don't want to grow. I don't want this. I'm not interested. Don't even bother sending to me. But I think if we want to grow, you have to listen. Let people sell. If you can't afford it, fine, you can't afford it, but let them sell. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I wish I could. But even listening is important. And what I started to realize, though, was that these people, they didn't just wake up one morning and started to charge 4,000 or 10,000 for their courses. They invested in themselves first. They all did. If you listen to their stories, they'll tell you they spent way more than that on themselves first. They did, all of them. There was this other lady. I started to see her. Every time I attend something related to music, like maybe a conference or a challenge, something, I used to see her in place, and I was like, oh, who's this? I've not really heard about her before. But when she spoke, I loved what she spoke about. She's like an expert at like TikTok and growing your audience on TikTok and things like that. And then she will talk about how she's made this amount. I'm like, how are these people just, and then you listen to their story and then you realize they didn't start that way. No, they had low days first where they were barely making anything and struggling to make ends meet. But they invested, all of them invested massive amounts first to grow to where they are, right? And it made me realize that actually, if we want to make it, in quotes, we should be willing to invest in ourselves. Obviously, you can invest a range of things depending on what you have, right? At first, it could just be time. But if you want to earn a big amount through your courses, through all of these things we've spoken about, it's not going to come without a cost. It's not. And we need to be willing to spend the money. We need to be willing. It's not going to be, something that's just going to happen like that. However, when we spend the money, when we know that actually I spent the money and I learned this, I put it to work and it's earned me this. So this is what I'm charging because I want to teach you how you can earn this. It's going to cost you this. Take it or leave it. I'm saying it will cost you this because I know that what I'm going to teach you is going to get you here. I've seen it. I've tried it. It's worked for me and it'll work for you. Who's not going to be afraid to charge that price if that happened, if you had gone through all of that? Is there anyone that would be worried about charging that price? I'm waiting for no's, head shakes, anything. Does that change things at all for you? It's a journey. You start from somewhere and you keep going. But if you are investing in yourself, you will have no problems charging more, because your self-worth, your self-value will automatically increase. How many of us went to uni and had to take a loan to go to uni? Or how many of us know someone that happened to? It's very common, isn't it? Do we ever frown at taking a loan to go to uni, student loans? No, don't go into debt to go to uni. Bad move. Does anyone ever say that? I don't know. I don't think anyone ever says that. It's like, it's an investment in your future, right? It's going to take you years to pay off, yes, but it's an investment that is worth it. So if you are starting a new career, if you're starting a new career that you're expecting to bring money in, how are you not thinking that it might be a good idea? No, like people just don't think about that. But actually, if you took a loan to go to uni, and some people actually never even use what they went to uni for, they come out and they work something else. They do something totally different. But then why are we completely against possibly borrowing money when we're changing careers or starting a new career? Because that is essentially what we're doing. I mean, I didn't have any sort of education for music at all. And I certainly did not have any sort of education on coaching or teaching people how to run a music business. But if I do it right, it could bring a lot of income for me. So therefore, it's not really unheard of to know that I'm going to spend money on it. And that's just the sort of mindset I want us to have. So I'm hoping a lot of you saw the workbook. If you look at it, there is 6 questions at the end that I want us to go through and answer for ourselves. And from that, we'll take the homework. So I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. Okay. So if you can write, please go ahead. For these, I want us to write at least 3 points. So looking back at this year, 2022, these are strategic questions that will help you when you're planning your career, when you're planning in general, okay? It will help you assess where you are so you can plan for the future. So number 1, what has been your biggest accomplishment this year? What has been your biggest accomplishment this year? Anything you've done, released a single. We've all had our Spotify Wrapped released by now. We know how many streams we've received or how many streams we've had. What has been your biggest accomplishments this year? Or is it at work? Something that has happened. Number 2, what has been your biggest lessons learned? So for me, there's a whole lot that goes into planning an event. So I had my album release concert and there were a lot of lessons that were learned about that. I think I'm actually going to look for someone to talk me through how to plan an event. But for you, what has been your biggest lessons? Number 3, what are your greatest strengths? Skills/abilities. What are your greatest strengths? Number 4, what are your greatest weaknesses? What parts require work in the next year? What are your greatest weaknesses? What do you need to work on next year? Or what do you need to outsource next year? We don't really need to work on every single thing ourselves. A weakness might actually just mean you need to outsource that because it's too important to keep doing it yourself if that's your weakness. So something like graphics, I hate it. I do not have the gift for it. And I have determined that I will always give out my graphics to be done, regardless of Canva, regardless of how helpful Canva is. I will be outsourcing my singles, my artwork for my music. Number 5, what are the greatest opportunities available to you? What are the greatest opportunities available to you? Number 6, what are the biggest threats you face? So, using that, I want us to go to the goals sheet, the one that says financial goals and career goals. Write down what you are making currently and where you are at your career currently. And then go to, in 12 months, write down where you want to be. So I currently make this amount. In 12 months' time, I want to be making this amount. Think big. Stretch your faith. So right now, you might not see how you can make the money, but the plan is to come up with a way to get that money in. So career goals, the same. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? Do you hate your job? Will it be that you want to be at a different job and maybe you even know the kind of job you want? You can write that. In 12 months' time, I want to be working here. Or I want to be working on my music fully. I want to be a full-time producer. Anything, the world is your oyster. Okay. And then the growth work is so based on the last 3 points, greatest opportunities, biggest threats, greatest weaknesses, write the top 3 goals that you want to go for using that. So essentially, if your greatest weaknesses is this, how do you want to tackle that in the next year? If your greatest opportunity is A, how do you want to take advantage of that in the next year? If your biggest threat is this, what do you want to do about that in the next year? So write your top 3 steps on how to tackle these. Does anyone have anything they want to say? And then I'll quickly talk about crowdfunding for Sandra. But before that, are there any questions, any thoughts? How has this been so far? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Right as my child walks in. What?
I just noticed I haven't had the second medication.
Okay, I'll get to it. He's reminding me he needs to take his medicine. That's a positive. Because he really doesn't
That's
like this
good.
stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, you've given us a lot to think about, given me a lot to think about. And I think the addressing money mindsets has been a huge one for me. Because I have a lot of really I learned about a year ago. I had a lot of really negative mindsets about money. Ideas I grew up with, and that were keeping me in a mindset of poverty, really, and lack. They were completely holding me back. I am still, it's been over a year, actually. It's been more like 2 years later. I am still working on these mindsets and trying to get these negative beliefs out of my mind, and out of all the beliefs that I've had to change. That one's been the hardest. And possibly consequently, I still struggle in the area of finances. I'm still working on that part. And this aspect of self-worth, I really struggle with that. And I mean, I'm glad you addressed it. It is so difficult for me to value myself. I know, like, what I do is valuable, and I know the time and the energy and the effort that it takes. I know the sacrifices that I make when I'm working for someone on their music, and I'm trying to get it out as quick as they want me to. And I know I am way underpaid.
Yeah.
and usually after the fact, even though I'm proud of the work I've done, I think that was not worth it.
Yeah.
In fact, a client came back to me a few months after I'd done a project for her. She came back asking me to do another. I declined because I thought it's not worth it.
Yeah.
The amount of
that's a really important point you raise. Really important, because we quit because we're like, all this stress, why am I putting myself through all of that? That is why you should be charging something that you're comfortable for. Do you know? Because if you're undercharging, you're gonna hate it and you're gonna quit.
Yeah.
So looking at all the amount of time and the work you put in, how much do you want to charge? Go for it.
Yeah. And I do have a problem trying to figure out a rate.
Mm.
I did figure out a base rate. I have a producer mentor,
Mm.
and he did help me figure out a base rate. But honestly, I'm just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm so
No,
uncomfortable
honestly,
with it because
just rip the band-aid up.
I know it's just I've done,
And
you know,
and
I just keep saying, oh, I don't have that much experience, or
and
there's
start off
there's always something.
start off by emailing your contacts that in the new year your prices are going up. So when they come to you, they know this is your new price, and they're not going to be coming back to you to, you know, with thinking that they're going to be charged the same old price. So just email people, everyone that's worked with you in the past, say these are your new prices, your prices are going up.
I have my prices listed nowhere,
Yeah.
very much on purpose, because what I do is I say, what's your budget?
Mm. So this is my homework. New
And then
homework,
whatever they say is whatever I go with.
especially for you, Sharon, up your rates. And I know you can, so you can help people out, you know, but they need to know that this is what you charge normally. But for this time, you will charge this because this is their budget. But also, they need to give you a review, a 5-star review. In addition. And a video review at that. Seriously. Do you know, so I'm not saying you never help out people, but you need to do it because you need to be happy with what you do. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I was proud of the few projects that I did this year, but they were difficult. They were the biggest challenges I had faced so far. They were on a really tight deadline. One song I produced in 3 days.
Wow.
That's unheard of.
If you can produce a song in 3 days, you can definitely produce 10 songs in a month.
No, that was completely abnormal because the next project, it took me 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, normally I can produce a song in 1 to 2 weeks, depending on what it is and if I'm working, who I'm working with. Sometimes you have to get other musicians involved, and then it drags it out, takes a lot longer. The one that was done in 3 days, I did everything myself. But that's not always the case, you know, and I don't know how I did it. I think it was just because her style was my style. So I didn't have to, it wasn't effort. It was,
yeah,
it came naturally. Whereas the next project I produced was a much different style than what I would normally do. And so it was harder in that regard. But
okay.
Yeah, you've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah,
So,
one assignment for you, special assignment for you before the end of the year. Send that email out. Yeah. Anyone else? Sandra, Priscilla? Any thoughts? Take home messages? And let me just bring up the chat in case someone is typing something. Nope. All right. Are you guys still there though?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to say?
Well, concerning my music production, I realized that I've learned over the years, over this past year, this 2022, I've learned a lot because I had the 2 songs that I have already. First time I actually went to the studio to produce. So there were some lessons learned. And it's part of, because of those mistakes or those inexperience, I spent more money than I should have. So I've
Yeah.
learned from those experiences, and I'm hoping that those things that I've learned will help me for my future work next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Priscilla, anything?
Not really. I think there's
Okay. I think you meant to say it's very muffled. We can barely hear you. But I think, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, now I can hear you.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. We're saying that. Yeah, I missed top part of the start, so I've just been playing catch up. But yeah, it's a lot to think about really in terms of the money mindset. I think one of my weaknesses is being organised with my music. In terms of releases and things like that, I tend to just write, record, and then release without really thinking about it. I don't really think about much of the variables really, but that's something I'm just trying to kind of put myself. I'm trying to do things in order that there should be going now. So yeah.
All right. So there are some things we talked about at the start that might be useful to you, definitely. So still go back and listen to it, okay? You are on the group, right? So it's already going to be on the group because I'm streaming to it. So you don't need to wait for the email to come out. I actually hear there was a problem with the links yesterday, so I have to send it out again. But yeah, go to that beginning part and just check it out. Because I think that'll be helpful for you as well. All right, so we know the growth work, top 3 things that you want to work on based on the 6 strategy questions. Yes, Sandra, you were asking about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding essentially means that you are, how you do it is you pick a platform. There are multiple platforms. There's, what the Patreon, what are the platforms again? The one I use is Rocket Fuel. It's based in the UK here, but there's multiple platforms. Yeah, there's GoFundMe, Patreon, and there's multiple ones in the US as well. But you make a video of yourself saying, this is your dream, this is your vision, you want to do this with your music, you're inviting your audience to support you. You generally have something you offer in return. So maybe people that pay £50 get this and this and this. It could be a shirt, a hoodie. But the what we're saying is that they are supporting you and then getting a reward. What they're paying for is not going to be the equivalent of what you're giving them. And it could be anything. Some people write handwritten lyrics, they do some artwork, some people do, there's all sorts of things. So yeah, we can talk more about it in the future, but you essentially pick a target and say you want to raise maybe 5,000 for your next album. And you'll really appreciate it if your fan gives to you. It will run maybe over 6 weeks, something like that. And you just keep regularly posting and reminding your fans through email, calls, and lots of different things. There's a whole set of things that you do. And then people give. So I've done it twice now. The first time, I think I raised about 3,500. And this year, I think I raised close to £2,000. So yeah, really helpful. Okay. But yes, there is a whole, you can do a course on crowdfunding. So we can talk more about it as well later on. Any other questions? I will let you guys go because it's 20 past now. All right. Have a lovely, lovely night. Thank you so much for coming out and spending your night with me. All right. Take care. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. See you
Bye.
tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you.
No worries.